This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about primitive data types, and we have discussed what exactly a primitive data type and what type of primitive data types that we have in Apex programming, and what is the significance of each data type, and what kind of values that will be acceptable by each data type, and how much memory it will occupy to store the value, and what kind of ranges that we have for these data types we have discussed. Now, so that already we have discussed, primitive data types allows us to store only a single value. That value may be either an integer value, or a decimal value, or a string value, or a boolean value, or a date value, or an ID value, anything. So in order to store a single value, we are using the primitive data types. Like, for example, I have the value, for example, I have the value, like I'm having the value 25 lakhs. Now tell me this value will be of type what? Numerical. In numerical, what is the type? Is it having any decimal digits? No. It's purely integer part. So in order to store this value, we can define one integer variable. Integer, I would like to indicate some balance. So I'm defining a variable and then we can able to store this value. Suppose for example, I have the value some Santosh Kumar like this. Santosh Kumar. This value is of type what? String. So in order to store this value, we are defining a variable of type string. Now, I have the value false. Now this is of type what? Boolean. So I'm defining a variable of type Boolean. That means what? These data types allows us to store only a single value, not multiple. That allows us to store only a single value inside the variable. But sometimes I have a record. Like for example, I'm having an account record. So this is the account record that we have. Now, I'm having an account record. In this account record, I'm having the record details. This is the account record details. Account record ID 001 3344 Assume that this is the ID of the record. Name of the record is Sam Prakash. Rating value some warm. Industry some finance. Annual revenue 42 lakhs. Phone number some value. Fax number some value. SLA some gold. Customer priority some high. Active status some yes. These are the values. So now tell me Upon storing this record, how many values are available? Only one value or multiple value? Multiple values. Depends upon the number of fields that we have in the object, those many number of values will be available. So we are having this, okay, the ID value. Now this ID value will be storing in which type of data type? ID data type. This is of type what? String. This is of type. This is of type string. Right. This will be of type what? Integer. That means this is a currency. Currency will be referencing which data type by default? Decimal. Now, phone number will be of type string. Fax number string. SLA string. Priority string. Active status string. That means what? When you observe this account record, in this account record, we are having various types of values. So we have ID values, we have string type of values, we have decimal type of values, we can have different types of values. So in this case, how to store this complete account record? So in order to store the record values, that means if you want to store the records related to your Salesforce objects, Salesforce has given a data type called as SObject Datatypes. SObjects means what? Salesforce objects. Salesforce objects means what? Combination of both the standard and custom objects. So, in order to store your Salesforce object records, we are using the help of SObject data types. So, primitive data types can store only one value. But there are some situations I would like to deal with some records. I want to collect the records from the database. I want to hold the records. Sometimes I want to insert a new record. I want to update the existing record. I want to delete the records. I want to fetch the records. So to hold the records, okay, we are using the help of a subject data types. Now, in this case, as part of Salesforce objects, we have so many objects are available, including standard, including custom. So, as part of standard objects, we have plenty of standard objects are available in Salesforce, and custom objects also we can create. Now, how many custom objects we can create in free developer edition? In free developer edition, how many custom objects that we can create? 400, right? We can create 400 custom objects in free developer edition. In unlimited edition, 2000 custom objects we can create. That is a limitation given by Salesforce. These are the governor limits that we have, that already we have discussed in our starting classes. So now we can create 400 custom objects additionally. In each object, we are having different each object will be having its own fields. So for that reason, as part of Salesforce, in SObject data types, Salesforce has given so many data types here. Like to store this account record, it has given a data type called as account. Account. Account is a data type which can store one single account record, the complete record it can hold inside this, which includes ID, name, rating, industry, annual revenue, phone, fax, billing address, shipping address, SLA, priority, everything. The complete record we can store within a single variable of type account. So account is a data type. Whatever the objects that we have in Salesforce, including standard, including custom, with the same object names, Salesforce has given data types also. Account is a data type. Contact is a data type. Lead is a data type. And the position is a data type. And then case is a data type. And the opportunity is a data type. User data type. Profile data type. My custom object, hiring manager underscore C data type. Candidate underscore C data type. Loan underscore C data type. So whatever the Salesforce objects that we have inside your org, including standard, including custom, whatever the Salesforce object names that we have, with the same names we are having data types in Salesforce. Okay, because to store that corresponding object records. Now, so in this case here, we have a data type account which can store account record. Like as integer data type can store one integer value. Like that, account data type can store one account record. Lead data type, it can store one lead record. Campaign data type, it can store one campaign record. Contact data type, it can store one contact record. Opportunity data type, it can store one opportunity record. Case data type, it can store one case record. Solution data type, it can store one solution record. My custom object, customer underscore underscore C. This is the data type which can store one customer object record. Loan underscore underscore C. Loan is my custom object. So it is having the data type with the name loan underscore underscore C. Hiring manager is a custom object which will be holding the data type. And then candidate underscore underscore C. It is a data type in order to store a candidate record. Position data type. It can be holding one position record. And then branch underscore underscore C. Like that here, whatever the objects that we have in Salesforce, okay, with the same object names, we are having data types in order to hold that corresponding object records inside this. To store a single value, we have to use primitive data types. To hold the complete record, we are using a subject data type. Okay, understood the concept here? Now, let's see. Make a note of this one. Yes, subject data types. Yes, subject stands for Salesforce objects, which includes both standard and custom objects. Yes, subject data types are used to store the Salesforce object records inside the variable. Inside the variable. Apex provides a collection of subject data types where the data type name and the object name is similar as below. For example, we have account, contact, opportunity, lead, campaign, case, solution, user, profile. Like that, we have custom objects also. Hiring manager, position, candidate, loan, branch, etc. And along with that, we have a data type called as subject. Account data type. It can hold an account record. Opportunity data type. It can hold an opportunity record. Hiring manager data type. It can hold a hiring manager record. candidate data type. It can hold a candidate object record. Yes, subject. It is a generic data type. It is a generic data type which can hold any Salesforce object record inside it. So whatever the Salesforce object names that we have, with the same names we are having data types in a subject in Salesforce, which are used to store the associated object records inside it. Done with this? Now, so these are the various types of data types that we have in Apex programming. We have primitive data types, so which are used to store the single values inside that. Second one is subject data types, which are used to store your Salesforce subject records. For a single value, go with the primitive. To store the records, we are using the subject data types. Okay. Now, now let's see the concept of variables. So we have to understand what exactly a variable and what is a use. how to define the variables in Apex programming language, and what kind of syntax we used to follow upon defining a variable, what kind of naming conventions and the coding standards we used to follow upon defining the variables. We'll see one by one. So first of all, we have to understand what exactly a variable. Okay, now let me explain. For example, assume that I have my personal PC. Okay, I have my personal PC, like as a laptop or desktop, whatever. In my PC, I'm having 1 terabyte of hard disk. I'm having 1 TB hard disk. In this 1 terabyte, that means almost 1024 GB. Okay, 1 TB means 1024 GB of space. Now, so now in this 1024 GB of space, we can store so much content. We can store some lakhs of files, documents, audios, videos, everything we can store inside this. So this is 1 TB space. There is 1 TB space. In this 1 TB space of my hard disk, I can store so much content inside that. As of now, this entire 1 TB space is free because I haven't stored anything till now. Recently, I have purchased my system. In this system, I'm having complete 1 TB space is available. We don't have any content inside that. The complete 1 TB space is free. It is available. Now, in this 1 TB space, I want to store my customer data. So today we have captured a new customer. Related to the customer, I have collected his details. I want to store the customer details inside my app, inside my space. Now I would like to store the customer name. For example, where I can store this customer name in this entire space, 1 TB space, we can store wherever you want. Because complete 1 TB space is free, it is available. Nothing is there inside the space, it's completely free space, so I can store wherever I want. For example, I'm storing that customer name in this location. The customer name is, for example, I'm indicating some Sandeep Kumar. Customer name is some Sandeep Kumar, which has been stored in this 1 TB space. Now the data has been stored in this location over here. This is the location where exactly the data has been stored. Now, so whenever I'm storing some data in this 1 TB space, in this location data has been stored. Then how can we recognize this location over here? How to recognize this location? Whatever the location, whatever the space that we have inside your 1 TB space, each location will be having some address. Each location is having some address. Now, in this case, this is called as a memory address. Okay, this is a 1 TB space of memory. In this memory, each location will be having some memory address. Like for example, assume that. For example, today I want to visit one of my friend's home. I would like to visit his house because he is conducting a small party. I asked him, okay, where are you staying now? He said that Kukatpalli. Now tell me, Kukatpalli is a small area? No, it's a very big area. In that Kukatpalli, where you are staying here, I need that address. Based on the address, I can locate your house, I can attend your party here. Like the similar way, 1 TB space that we have, this is a huge space. In this space, where exactly this particular content has been stored. So now in this case, this is the location. This location will be having some memory address. Generally, in operating systems, the memory addresses will be always represented in the form of hexadecimal format. Memory addresses are always represented in hexadecimal format. Hexadecimal format values are always starting with 0x. Okay, these are always starting with 0x. So we are having this 0x, 11x, 11x. This is a memory address. So now whenever if you want to get this get this value, then we need to be aware of this memory location here. That means memory address. Now, in this case here, if you want to collect this customer name, then we have two alternatives. First one, we have to go to this 1 TB space, start for the stretching mechanism of this content from starting of the memory address to till ending of the memory here. Now tell me if you want to search for the content in 1 TB space, how much time it will take? It will take more time. Because 1 TB space means it's a huge space. To search for the content in this entire space, it will take more time. For that reason, what we can do, we can be aware of this memory address. Based on the memory address, what we can do, directly we can locate to the memory address, we can get the value whatever you want. Okay, we can get the value whatever you want. So if you know the memory address, then based on the memory address directly we can go to the location, we can get the value here. Clear? Understood the concept here? Now, so in this case, now tell me, will you able to remember this memory address name, like a 0x11x11x? Will you able to remember this memory address? No, because we don't have that much of huge memory space in our mind. Because in our mind we are having a small chip is available where we can't remember 4-digit pin number of our bank account in some cases. Then how can we remember this kind of complex numbers here? It will be very difficult to remember this kind of complex numbers. Now, suppose we can raise a question, sir, I will by hand this memory address, I will remember this. Okay, fine, it's your choice. Suppose, for example, if I'm storing only name, then we are having this memory address. Along with the name, I'm storing some more details also. Like I'm storing the designation of the customer. Like he is a project manager. Now, I'm storing his email address also. Like a sandeep.k@some gmail.com. I'm storing his balance amount also. Like some 42 lakhs. Balance amount. So multiple values I have stored over here. Multiple values. This is another value, that means designation. This is the email ID. This is the balance amount. Now each value will be holding its own memory address. Now it is having that 0x1 XX1x. It is having that memory address 0x1x1111x. It is having the memory address 0x111x11. These are memory addresses. So we have four values are available. Four values has been stored in four different locations. Four different locations are having four different memory addresses. Now tell me in this case here, will you able to remember all these four memory addresses here? No, we can't remember. If it is one, we can by heart, we can remember. If it is multiple, we can't remember this. It will be very, very difficult. In this case, instead of remembering these memory addresses, okay, instead of remembering these memory addresses, can we allocate one meaningful name for this memory address? Yes. I would like to allocate a meaningful name for each and every memory address. For every memory address, I would like to allocate a meaningful name. So whatever the memory addresses that we have, for each memory address, I would like to allocate a meaningful name. Now, here I'm allocating the meaningful name here. This is like as customer name. I'm allocating a name here. This is the designation. So this is the designation. This is the email address. This is the balance amount. Balance amount. For each and every memory address, I'm allocating a meaningful name over here. Now tell me in this case here, remembering the memory addresses are easy or remembering these names are easy for you? Names are easy. So that means what? Whenever we are holding some values, each value will be storing in a specific location inside our storage space, that each location will be having a memory address. In order to collect that value, we should be aware of that memory address. But instead of remembering that memory address, we would like to allocate a meaningful name for each and every memory address. These meaningful names are called as variables. Whatever the meaningful names that we're allocating for the storage space, okay, those meaningful names are called as variables. Variables. Then what do you mean by a variable? Variable is nothing but a name which has been allocated to the memory location in order to locate a value. In order to collect the value, or in order to locate a value, whatever the memory address that we have, for that memory address we are allocating a meaningful name. Because we can't remember all these memory addresses by our own, it will be very difficult. So that we are allocating a meaningful name for each memory address, that is called as a variable. Then what is the use of this variable? Each variable will be locating to a memory location. In that memory location, we are having some value. So simply we can say variables are used to store some values. In order to hold some value, we are using variables. That's what simply we can say variable is nothing but a container. Okay, this is nothing but a container which contains some value inside that, which will hold the values. Now here you can raise a question, sir, will it be holding the value permanently? No, it is only temporarily here. Okay, temporarily. Temporarily means how long time? Till your program is executing. Till your program is running, this variable will be holding the value inside the memory location. Once you are closing the program, once you are sign out from the program, memory will be released, the value will be lost. Again, once you start the program, again memory will be allocated, it will hold the value. That means during that program execution, to hold the value temporarily for some time, we are using variables. Okay, so variables are used to hold the values temporarily, not permanently. Permanently, if you want to store the value, then only location is database table. That means objects. Within the objects, we are storing some records, those are permanent storage. But whatever the variables that we have, these are temporary storage memory locations. Okay, now come to a small scenario. For example, assume that. So everybody is having your own smartphones. In your smartphones, you are having so many contacts related to your friends, colleagues, family members, and then your relatives also. So many people's contact numbers are available. So now you might be having some 200 to 300 contacts may be available minimum. Minimum, I'm talking about that. So now tell me, will you able to remember all the people's contact numbers? No, we can't remember those contact numbers because it's very difficult. Even we can't remember all our family members' contact numbers also. Now, in that case here, whenever we are getting collecting a new contact number related to your friend or colleague or family member, or it may be related to your relative also, we are saving that contact number inside our mobile by giving a name over here. By giving a name. Like as Ramesh Kumar. In future, if you want to make a call to the person, then we can search for the name. Based on the name, we can collect that mobile number, we can make a call, we can have the conversation with the people. That means based on that name only we can able to recognize that. So that we are unable to remember all the contact numbers, for each contact number we are going to be giving a meaningful name upon saving into our databases here. Like the similar way, here also, if you want to store some values temporarily as part of your program execution, then we can go with the help of variables. So, variable is nothing but a meaningful name which can be allocated to the memory location in order to hold the values. So variables are nothing but the containers which can hold some value inside that temporarily. During the program execution, variables will be available inside the memory. Once the program has been closed, automatically the variables will be getting released from the memory by default here. Okay? Now, so in this case, how can we define the variables in Apex programming? What is the syntax we used to follow? Now, let me explain. Okay, clear up to this one? Now, make a note of this one variables. Variable is nothing but a meaningful name which can be allocated to the memory location in order to locate a value. In order to locate a value. Variables are used to hold the values temporarily. Variables are used to hold the values temporarily. Temporarily during the program execution. Now, you can define that. Variables are nothing but the containers which contains the values inside it. Which contains the values inside it. Variables are nothing but the containers which contains the values inside it. Now, so as part of your Apex program, whenever if you want to use any variable, first of all, we have to define. Because Apex is purely a tightly coupled programming language. Not only Apex programming, your Pascal also, C also, C++, Java, C Sharp, Python, and our Apex programming all are tightly coupled programming languages where before using the variable, first of all, we have to define. We have to define the variables of first before its usage. This is a fundamental principle of tightly coupled programming languages. Most of the programming languages are tightly coupled programming languages. So that here we have to define the variable first before its usage. Then how can we define the variables? Now let's see what is the syntax we used to follow, what kind of naming conventions and the coding standards we need to follow upon giving the variable name. Now let me explain. Now, Apex is a tightly coupled programming language which enforce the developer to define the variables before its usage. Now, we have to follow the syntax. We can specify the access specifier and we can specify the data type. We can specify the data type, variable name, and optionally we can assign the value also. So this is the syntax we used to follow. Access specifier, data type, variable name, and the value. Now, so in this syntax, whatever the things that have enclosed in square braces, in this syntax, whatever the things that have enclosed in square braces, these are optional. These are optional. Access specifier is optional, assigning the value also optional. It's your choice here. But right now, access specifiers are not required. When moving forward in object-oriented programming language, then we need this access specified. So till then, it is not at all required. So leave it here. No issues. Now, we have to specify the data type here. You know what data types are available in Apex programming. Already we know that here. So we have to specify the data type and specify the variable name, and optionally we can specify the value. If you want to assign the value, then we can assign. If you don't want, leave it, no problem also. But already told you in Apex programming, each statement should be ends with a semicolon. So that we have to end with that semicolon over here. So now simply we can specify data type, variable name, and then optionally we can assign the value. If you're not assigning the value, then simply we can specify data type, variable name, semicolon. That's it, over. Okay. Now, so now here in this case here, let's see. So now whenever we are going to be defining the variables, this is the syntax we used to follow. Access specifiers are not required right now. These are required in object-oriented programming language. Okay, till then it is not at all required. So forget about this part over here. We'll see later. Now we can specify the data types. We know what data types are available in Apex programming. We have discussed the primitive data types, yes, subject data types both. Depends upon the value which you are going to store, specify the corresponding data type. If you are going to store a numerical value, specify the data type as integer. If you are storing a date value, give the data type as date. If you are storing an account record, give the data type as account. If you are storing that lead record, give the data type as lead. So it may be primitive or a subject data type also. Anything depends upon the value which you are going to store, specify the data type and give the variable name. Okay. Now, so now in this case, whenever we are giving these variable names, we have to follow certain rules. Okay, we have to follow certain rules. Now, in this case here, upon preparing the variable names, we have to follow certain rules. As part of real-time implementation, we have to follow few coding standards and the naming conventions. In Apex programming, upon defining the variable, we can give any name also, it will accept as it is, no issues. But when we go to the real-time implementations, we have to follow some coding standards, naming conventions. So that here we have to make it habituated those standards from here itself. So when you go to the real time also, it will be very easy for you. Now, so now whenever we are defining the variable, okay, upon defining the variable, we have to follow certain rules. Let me explain what are those rules we used to follow. The first principle is variable name should be always a single word. Okay, variable name should be always a single word. That means variable name should not have any spaces inside that. It should be always a single word. It should not have any spaces. Second one, whenever we are defining the variables, variable name can include alphanumerical values along with a special character that is underscore. Like for example, I want to store, okay, the contact numbers of a person here. Then we can specify phone number 1, phone number 2. Like that here, we can define two variables also. Variable name can include alphanumerical value along with a special character that is underscore. We can define that. Okay, this is the second principle here. Third principle, okay, third principle. Whenever we are defining the variable name, always we have to follow camel case. Okay, always we have to follow camel case. So now when coming to that Salesforce, whenever we are going to be using the coding standards, we have three types of naming conventions are available over here. Now, three kinds of naming conventions are the coding standards are available. First one we have camel case. Second one Pascal case. Third one kebab case. Okay, kebab case. So these are the three naming conventions are available. Camel case, Pascal case, and then kebab case. In camel case, each and every word name should be starts with a lowercase letter. Okay, it should be starts with a lowercase letter. Later we can use uppercase also here. Now, it should be starts with a lowercase letter. Like for example, customer name, balance amount, now designation. I want to indicate contact number. Like that, it should be starts with a lowercase letter. That means small letter over here. Later, we can use uppercase also inside that. Okay. So as part of camel case, in camel case, the each and every word character should be starts with a lowercase letter. Later, in the middle of that word, we can use uppercase letters also, no issues. Okay. This is the camel case format. Pascal case means each and every word name should be starts with the uppercase letter here. It should be starts with a uppercase letter. For example, accounts helper, common helper, database helper. Like that. Each and every word name should be starts with a uppercase letter. That is a fundamental rule of Pascal case. Kebab case is purely using by Lightning experience. In Lightning Web Components, purely we are using that kebab case format where it should be always all the characters will be in lowercase letters. All the characters will be in lowercase letters and each word should be separated by using a hyphen. Each word should be separated by using a hyphen over here. That is the fundamental rule. Now, like for example, if you want to write a sentence over here, welcome to Apex programming, like that. Now, all characters should be in lowercase and each word should be separated by using a hyphen. Each word should be separated by using a hyphen here. These are the three naming conventions are available here. So whenever we are defining the variables, for each variable name, we have to follow camel case. That means the variable name should be starts with lowercase. This is the coding standard we used to follow in real time. When you go to Apex programming, you can give any name here, no problem. It will accept uppercase, lowercase, combination, it will accept as it is. But when you go to the real-time implementation, we have to follow this kind of coding standards. So that here, instead of learning this coding standard later, why can't we learn from here itself? If I'm learning from here itself, if I'm making habituated with this same standard here, when you go to the real time, it will be very easy for you. That's what here we have to follow this kind of coding standards from here itself. So that whenever we are going to be defining the variable name, so now there are some principles. The first principle is variable name should be always a single word which should not have any spaces. Second one, variable name can include alphanumerical values along with a special character that is hyphen. Third one, variable name should be always defined with the help of camel case. Okay, always we have to follow camel case upon defining the variables. And the fourth principle is whenever we are defining the variables, don't define multiple variables with the same name. Each variable should have a unique name. Okay, every variable should have a unique name. These are the four principles we used to follow over here upon defining variables. Okay, clear? Now, make a note of this one. Note. While defining the variables, we have to follow the below coding standards. First one, variable name should be always a single word. That is, it should not have any spaces inside it. Second one, always follow the camel case to define the variables. That is, variable name should be starts with a lowercase letter. Variable name can include alphanumerical values along with special character, along with a special character hyphen, sorry, underscore. Always variable names should be unique. Always variables names should be unique. These are the four principles we used to follow upon defining the variables.
Excuse me, Firoz.
Yes.
Here you told that in Lightning, that Salesforce Lightning, so most of the time we'll be using kebab case. But while writing the variable node, we have written that we should always follow the camel case. So is there any
Now,
particular?
no,
I
see,
didn't get.
this is only in Lightning Web Components. When you go to the Lightning Web Components, whatever the component names are available, those are purely in kebab case.
Okay. So it is completely
Okay.
different from the Apex
Right,
programming.
right.
Okay.
So because whenever we are writing the code, we have to follow these standards. Because might be the people from maybe from technical background, like they may be from computer science or the computer applications, also from their graduation, post graduation. So now, whenever we are learning all these programming languages in the college level, those people won't follow all these standards. Simply, they will define the variables like as with the name X, Y, Z, ABC, like that normal single variable names. But when moving forward to the real time, these kind of naming conventions they won't accept. We have to follow few standards upon writing the code. All the developers should follow some coding standards so that here we can make it habituated those standards from here itself. In the college level they won't concentrate on the coding standards, simply they will be defining the variables like as x, y, z, like that. But single character variable names cannot be acceptable in the real time. Okay, now, so please give the meaningful name for the variable. Just by looking into the variable name itself, we can understand what exactly this variable, what type of variable it is, what type of value it can hold inside that. For that one, please give the proper meaningful names. Okay? Now, so now let's see how can we define the variables now. Clear up to this one? Now, let's see. For example, I want to define the variables here. Now I will tell you the requirement. Tell me the data type over here. Suggest me the data type. I want to store customer code. It's a numerical one. Now tell me how to define.
Integer.
I want to store customer code, which is the numerical value here, like as some 450021, like that.
Integer.
Integer, integer. Okay, integer. That means here we have to specify the data type and then variable name. What is the variable name I can specify? Can I specify X? Yes, we can specify. Okay, Apex programming will accept, but in the real time, they won't accept this here. Then what is the name that you want to suggest here?
Some
Customer
ID
code.
or code.
customer code here.
Customer code.
I'm giving the variable name as customer
Customer
code.
code.
So now customer code here, the C will be starting with small. Okay, because we need to follow coding standards over here.
Yes.
Why? Because based on this name itself, we can understand. If it is starting with a small, it's a variable. If it is starting with a capital, it's a class. Okay, for the classes, we used to follow Pascal cases. So just by looking into the name itself, we can understand is it a variable or is it a class? We can understand very easily here. Okay, for that reason, we are following this kind of notations. Now, I want to store the customer age. What can I do? What is the data type? Integer,
Integer.
right.
Integer.
Integer, I'm indicating customer age.
Yes.
I want to store his name.
String.
String.
What is the data type?
String.
String. String, customer name. I want to store his email ID.
String.
Data type is what? String. I'm giving as email address. I want to store his contact number. That means phone number, including
Integer.
plus 91 also. Plus 91 also.
Okay.
That
So
already told you. Phone data types are referencing what? String data type.
string
Mm.
data.
String contact number. Now, I want to store his joining date. What is the data
Date.
type?
Date type. Date
Date.
time.
Date, joining date.
Date.
Is the birth date.
Date.
Date, birth date. Now, his the current CTC or balance amount.
Currency.
Balance
Decimal.
amount means what?
Decimal.
Currency. Currency
Currency.
referencing which data type? Decimal.
Decimal.
Right.
Decimal.
Decimal, I'm indicating as balance
Balance.
amount here. I want to check whether the customer is active or not here.
Boolean.
I would like to use Boolean.
Boolean.
I'm indicating as is active.
Decimal.
Okay, is active. Clear? Like this, we have to define the variables. So we have to specify the data type, variable name, and the semicolon here. Now, integer customer code, integer customer age, string customer name, string email ID, string contact number, date, joining date, date, birth date, like that. Here we have defined the variables. So depends upon the value which you are going to store, the corresponding data type we have to specify for the variable over here. Okay, understood the concept here? Now tell me in this case here. Okay, now tell me in this case. Whenever we are observing these statements over here I have defined multiple variables. Okay, multiple variables. So these are the variables here. Customer code, this is of type what?
Integer.
Customer code will be of type integer. Customer age is of type integer. So I have written two lines of code here. Can we combine them into a single line? Because
Yes.
you can raise the question, sir, already you told that Salesforce has given very limited number of characters to be used to write the code, that we can write maximum 60 lakhs of characters code. So always we have to follow optimized code. Always we have to reduce the number of characters. Always we have to follow some shortcut mechanisms here. In this case, I have defined two variables of type integer in two separate lines. Here also I have written integer. Here also I have written integer. Can we combine both into a single line here? Yes, that is also possible. So in this case, instead of defining two variables in two separate lines, if both are having the same data type, then combine them into a single line by separating a comma. Okay, by separating a comma here. How to do that? Okay, now let's see. Initially, we are writing the code, then we can optimize that code over here. Okay, now in this case, make a note here. We can define the multiple variables of same data type within a single line as below. Now tell me how can we write that? Integer customer code comma customer age. That's it. Okay. Integer customer code comma customer age. So both the customer code value, customer age value, both will be of type integer. That is the meaning of this statement here. Next, string customer name, contact number, email address, date, joining date, birth date. Like that here, we can define multiple variables also within a single line. Previously, we have written some 7 to 8 lines, but now here we have written only within 3 lines here, so that we can reduce the lines of code. If the number of lines of code has been reduced, then automatically compilation time will be getting reduced. Execution time will be getting reduced, so that we can improve the application performance as well. Okay? Now, so that here initially we can define the variables like as a separate variable in each separate line, then later we can able to optimize that code as well over here. Done with these points? Now let's see. As of now, we have defined the variables over here. Have we assigned any values for this variable till now? No. Just have defined a variable. Now let's see. For example, come to the scenario. For example, I'm defining a variable. Integer customer code. I'm defining a variable integer customer code. Then what is the meaning of this statement over here? What this statement indicates? Now, this statement will be informing to the Apex compiler, dear compiler, user has defined a variable with the name customer code, which is of type an integer. So he wants to store one numerical value inside this variable. Okay, he wants to store some numerical value inside this variable here. So please reserve the required amount of memory. Now tell me, for the integer variable, how much memory will be reserved? 4 bytes. So please reserve 4 bytes of memory. Then immediately compiler is going to be reserving 4 bytes of memory over here. Immediately the compiler will reserve 4 bytes of memory. So this is the 4 bytes of memory over here. This is the 4 bytes of memory. Now this 4 bytes of memory will be pointing to this variable. This 4 bytes of memory will be pointing to the variable. And in this memory location, by default, it is storing the default value as null. By default, it is storing the default value as null. So that here, whenever we are defining a variable, if the user did not assign any value for the variable, by default, Salesforce will be storing the default value as null. It may be any data type variable also. It may be integer also, boolean also, string also, decimal also, double also, anything, it will store the default value as null. That is a fundamental principle of Apex programming language. Okay, so that here, whenever we are defining a variable by specifying the syntax integer and the customer code, this statement will inform to the Apex compiler, dear compiler, user has defined a variable with the name customer code, which is of type integer. So please reserve 4 bytes of memory and point the memory location to this variable and store the default value as null inside the variable. This is the meaning of this statement. Okay, so in that case, by default it is holding the default value as null. Now I don't want to store null value, I want to assign my customer code. Then in this case, how to assign the value for these variables here? Now let's see practically here. Okay, now let me give you the syntax also. Make a note here. While defining the variables, if the user did not assign any value, then Apex compiler will assign the value as null by default. Apex compiler will assign the value as null by default. Now, then how can we assign our own values? Now let's see. So once a variables has been defined, then we can assign our own values for the variables as below. Syntax. We can specify the variable name equals to value. We can assign the value like this here. Variable name equals to value. Whatever the variable we have defined, we can use that variable name equals to value. That means for that variable, I'm assigning this value. That means for this variable, whatever the memory has been reserved in that memory location, this value has to be stored. That is the meaning of this statement.
Sir, sir, you forgot to add the data type, sir.
Sorry?
Data type you did not add
No,
before the
no,
variable
because here
name.
I'm no variable is already defined. That's what I'm giving variable name directly here.
Okay.
Okay, if the variable do have defined already, then we can follow this syntax.
Okay. If the value is there, we can give it directly.
Right,
No need to give the data type.
right.
Okay, sir. Understood.
Done
Thank you.
with this syntax. Now let's see. Here I have defined a variable integer customer code. By default it is storing the value as null. Now here I am going to be assigning the value here, like customer code equals to 459000236. I'm assigning the value here. That means what is the meaning of this statement here? Please store this value inside the memory location reserved for the variable customer code. So already we have defined customer code variable, already 4 bytes of memory has been reserved. So what is the meaning? Please store this value in this memory location over here. Okay, for the customer code variable, already memory has been reserved. In that 4 bytes of memory, store this value 459000236. Now in this case it will be holding this value here. Whatever the value we have assigned, that value will be storing in that memory location. But already we have this previous value here. That null value will be erased. In that null value place, it will be occupying that memory space over here. Okay, You can write like this. Or else, if you want to write within a single line also, we can write here. That already I have given the syntax here. Now, you can write that code also like this. Integer customer code equals to 459000236. Any one of this you can able to follow. Either this one, okay, either this one here. Any one of this you can able to use here. Both are same. But this is having that lengthy, the second one is having optimized one here. Upon definition, we can assign the value also here. Okay, data type, variable name equals to the value over. Okay, if you know the value at the initial stage, you can follow this as second syntax. If you don't know the value, later if you want to assign in runtime, then go with the first format over here. Depends upon your requirement. Okay, now.
Yes, sir. Clear.
So this is a numerical value, so that we are assigning directly. If it is a string value, then how to assign the string value? Same. Okay, variable name equals to the value, but string values has to be represented in the form of what? By enclosing with single quote. Okay, please remember that points over here. Okay, now in this case, let's see. I'm indicating customer code. I'm assigning the value 45 okay 3000231. Customer age some 36. Customer name, it's a string type, so we have to enclose in single quote here. I'm indicating as Tata Motors. Now email address, I'm indicating contact at the rate tatamotors.com. Contact number, we have to specify +1 800 787 2233. Balance amount some 4 crore 79 lakhs. Is active equals to true. Like that we can specify numerical values, decimal values, boolean values don't enclose with single quote. Only string values you have to enclose with single quote here. Okay. Only string values, ID values we have to enclose with a single quote. Remaining values don't enclose with single quotes. Done with this? Next. Now in this case here what we did, we have defined the variables separately, we have assigned the values separately. Instead of doing that, can we do both in one line? Yes. Upon definition itself, can we assign the values? Yes, that we can do that here. How to do? Now let me show you here. That means different formats I'm showing to you. Depends upon your need, you can use it. You can assign the values for the variables upon definition as below. For example, integer customer code equals to 458000349, comma, customer age equals to some 32. String customer name equals to some Ram Kumar, comma, email address equals to ram at the rate some gmail.com. Like that we can specify. Decimal balance amount equals to 45,000. Loan amount equals to, okay, 4,44,000. Like that we can able to define. So we can define multiple variables within a single line. We can assign the values also at the time of definition itself. You no need to write the variables definition separately. You no need to assign the values separately. Everything we can able to combine together within a single line itself. So upon defining the variable itself, we can assign the value for the variables also. The facility is available so that we can make our code optimized. This is the concept of variables definition and the initialization. Definition means defining the variable here, like as a data type, variable name. Initialization means what? Assigning the value for that variables over here. What value you would like to store in the variable, that is called as initialization part over here. Done with these points? Now, let's write a small program here. Take a small use case. Write an Apex program to define the variables to hold the product details. I want to store the product details here. So to store the product details, whatever the variables are required, we need to define the variable with the respect to data type. We no need to assign the value here. Don't assign the value, just variable definition, that's it. Now tell me generally related to a product, what kind of data that we can store? Every product will be having product code, product name, and the quantity, manufacturer, and then we are having the contact number of the manufacturer, location of the manufacturer, email ID of the manufacturer, unit price of the product also, product manufacturing date and the expiry date, and whether product is available in stock or not. Like that, this kind of data that we can able to store. So now I would like to define the variables to hold this data here. Now let's see. Integer. I'm indicating as product code and quantity. That means how many items are available, how many products are available. That is nothing but number. We have 20 products or 40 products here or 50 products here. Next. Next one. Product name will be of type what? String. We are indicating product name. Manufacturer name. Okay, who is the manufacturer over here? Next, the contact number of the manufacturer. Email address of the manufacturer. Location of the manufacturer, whether he is from US or UK or what. Next, date. Manufacturing date. and expiry date, manufacturing date and expiry date. Next, I would like to specify Boolean is in stock. Okay, is in stock. Here I'm defining that decimal unit price. Okay, unit price. So, in order to store the product details, whatever the variables are required, we have defined those variables here. Integer, product code, comma quantity, product name, manufacturer name, contact number, email ID, and the location, date, manufacturing date, and then expiry date, and the decimal unit price, and the boolean value is in stock. That means product is available in stock or not, we are indicating these details. Next, one more use case. Write an Apex program to define the variables to hold the patient details. Patient details. For example, assume that today I went to a hospital to consult a doctor regarding my health issue. Since last 3 days, I'm not feeling well because of some fever, cold, cough, anything, so many things. So that I would like to consult a doctor to take some medicative treatment. So whenever we are visiting that hospital, first of all, we have to book the appointment with the doctor by contacting the receptionist people. Go to the reception. So now you can explain the situation. They will ask you, this is the first time are you visiting this hospital or already you have visited this hospital? So suppose if I said that this is the first time I'm visiting, then they will be giving a small form to me to fill up my details. Okay, because with these details they are going to be creating a new patient record in their database. So in future, whenever we are visiting the same hospital again to consult any doctor, based on your phone number, they will open your patient record, they will book the appointment directly. You no need to fill up the form every time. That means I am also one of the customer for that hospital over here. Okay. Now, in this case, now tell me, in that form, generally, what kind of data we have to fill up? Patient code will be there, patient name, age of the
Age,
patient, gender of the patient, contact number of the patient, email ID of the patient, address
Blood
of the
group.
patient, and then they are going to be collecting the doctor name to which you would like to consult and the consultation fee, disease description also, and the patient type. Are you outpatient or inpatient? They will maintain that. They're indicating appointment date and then appointment time and the visiting date also here, and then the consultation fee and whether you are already visited or not. All this data they will collect here. Okay, so regarding the to store this whole data, I would like to define variables. Now I'm defining the variables like this: integer, patient code, and the patient age, string, patient name, and the contact number, email ID, and the location, comma gender, comma doctor name, disease description. That means what exactly the health problem that we are facing right now. Next, date, appointment date, visiting date, time, appointment time, what time, okay, we have to come to the hospital to meet the doctor here. And then we can specify the decimal consultation fee, and then boolean is visited. Whether you are already visited the, that means already you have consulted the doctor or not, to indicate that we are indicating is visited. These are the various variables I would like to define, okay, in order to store the patient details. So depends upon the requirement, whatever the functionality you are going to implement, the corresponding variables we can define like this. This is how we are defining the variables, by giving the respect to data types and the variable names, and then we can follow the standards also. How to assign the values you already know. Okay. So this is the concept of variable definitions and assigning the values for your variables. The next one will see the concept of operators in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we'll see the concept of operators, and then I'm going to discuss about output statements. That means as of now, we have defined some variables, we have assigned some values. Once a variables has been defined and assigned the values, and on those values, how to perform the operations, how to perform the calculations, we'll see by using operators. And once operations has been done, whatever the result has been generated, how to print the result on my browser, on my debug log file, we'll see by using output statement. So once you are done with this, then we'll see where to write the code. As of now, we know how to write the code, how to define the variable, how to assign the value, how to perform the operation, how to print the result. Then where we can write this code. We'll see how to execute. We'll see those mechanisms. We'll see with the practical concepts. Okay. Now, so that here tomorrow we'll see the concept of operators and the output statements, and along with we'll see how many ways are available to write the Apex programming code, how many ways to execute the Apex programming code we'll see. So whenever we are writing your Apex programming code, we have 5 ways in Salesforce. We have 5 ways are available in Salesforce here upon writing the Apex programming code. While executing the code, we have 10 ways are available. So then what are those 5 ways to write? What are those 10 ways to execute? Okay, we'll see one by one here. Okay, in tomorrow's session. Okay. So go through this information today here. Tomorrow we'll see, okay, what exactly the operators, what categories of operators are available in Apex programming, and what output statements are available. We'll see one by one. Okay. Feeling comfortable till now? Any difficulty? No, right? Programming is very very easy. If you are free with that, that means if you are comfortable with the fundamental concepts, writing the code will be very very simple, very very easy. That's it. Okay. But the fundamental basics are very very important. Okay. Now, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.